Ridge Forrester stood in the sterile quiet of Dr. Andrews' office, numb. He had come in expecting something routine, blood work results, maybe a follow-up scan from a minor complaint. What he received instead was a sentence that echoed inside his head long after the doctor had stopped talking. Asterisk, stage 3 liver cancer. Aggressive. We need to act fast. Asterisk, the words didn't fully land at first. He blinked. Sat up straighter. Forced a calm nod. Okay, he'd said, his voice distant, automatic. What's next? But inside, something hollowed out. He walked out of the clinic with a folder full of scan images, instructions, and treatment options that felt more like funeral arrangements. As the California sun hit his face, Ridge didn't go back to Forrester Creations. He didn't call Taylor. He didn't even answer his phone. He drove. Nowhere specific. Just away. His thoughts were a roar of confusion and denial. Ridge Forrester. The man who built empires from fabric, who balanced the weight of legacy and love, was dying. And no one knew. He returned to the beach house that night and stared at his reflection for hours. The man in the mirror didn't look sick. But something behind his eyes was already slipping. He thought of Brooke, of Taylor, of Steffi and Thomas. Of RJ. Of the long, messy legacy he would leave behind. The love he couldn't seem to make last. The betrayals he couldn't outrun. And now this. A clock ticking inside his body. He made a decision before the sun rose. He wouldn't tell anyone. Not yet. Maybe not ever. By dawn, he was gone. No note. No goodbye. Just silence. When Ridge didn't show up for work, Eric assumed he was grieving. When he missed his lunch with Steffi, she figured he was with Brooke. When Taylor called his phone and it rang out again and again with no answer, her heart sank. Something was wrong. This wasn't Ridge being impulsive. This was different. The first 24 hours passed in a flurry of concern. By the second day, panic set in. Taylor contacted every airport, every friend, every hotel Ridge had ever stayed at. His car was found abandoned near Mulholland. His phone was off. His bank accounts showed a withdrawal in cash from a small branch outside town. No credit cards used since. No calls. No text. Nothing. She went to Brooke's house, her voice shaking. He's missing, she said. Brooke blinked. No. He wouldn't leave. Not like this. But Taylor's eyes were full of terror. He's not just avoiding us. He's gone. At first, they believed it had something to do with the chaos of the past few weeks, Brooke's accident, the media scandal, the engagement breakdown. But nothing added up. Ridge hadn't taken clothes. Hadn't contacted the kids. Hadn't left any explanation. And that silence screamed louder than anything he could have written. Taylor refused to believe he left without reason. Her instincts kicked in. Decades of psychological insight, a career of understanding trauma and withdrawal. She knew when someone was hiding something. She began the search herself. First retracing his steps. Then interviewing staff at the medical clinic Ridge had visited last. One nurse slipped up. Mentioned his last appointment. Taylor's pulse quickened. Last appointment for what? The nurse clammed up. Policy. Privacy. But Taylor had her lead. She posed as Ridge's medical proxy. She begged, pushed, threatened. Eventually, she found the truth. The diagnosis hit her like a physical blow. Liver cancer. Stage 3. The doctor had given him less than a year, maybe less without immediate treatment. And Ridge hadn't started anything. He hadn't scheduled surgery. No chemo. No plan. He had vanished. Alone. Taylor fell apart in the hospital parking lot. All the years of holding herself together for her patients, for her children, for Ridge crumbled in one moment. He had left her not out of spite or confusion, but to die in silence. The man she had loved longer than she could remember was disappearing from the world without letting her say goodbye. The search turned desperate. Taylor contacted private investigators. She looped in Steffi and Thomas, but told them only that Ridge was sick, left out the diagnosis. She flew to places Ridge had mentioned in passing over the years: Amsterdam, Provence, Sydney. She followed ghost trails, bookings under aliases. A man matching his description seen checking into a wellness resort in Santorini, then gone the next morning. Every time she was a few hours too late. Brooke, sensing something deeper than what Taylor admitted, demanded answers. "He's not just running, is he?" she asked. Taylor's silence confirmed everything. "What is it, Taylor? Is he dying?" Brooke's voice cracked. Taylor gave her the file Ridge had left behind at the beach house, forgotten in a drawer. Brooke read it, hands shaking, and collapsed to the floor. The rivalry ended that day. There was no room left for jealousy or blame. Only grief. Weeks passed. Then months. Ridge moved like a ghost across Europe, checking into small towns under false names. He wrote in a leather journal, drew when he had the strength, and thought of his children. He watched old videos of Steffi and Thomas as toddlers. He traced the lines of Brooke's name in sand with a stick and let the tide wash it away. He woke up gasping for air from dreams where he was surrounded by fabric but couldn't sew a single thread. His body weakened. His reflection faded. But he didn't go home. He couldn't bear to let them watch him fade. Then, one day in Morocco, he collapsed on the street outside a bakery. A woman found him, recognized him from a photo circulating online. American fashion designer. Missing. Sick. She called a hospital. They stabilized him. The doctors sent a report to the American consulate. Word spread. Within 24 hours, Taylor was on a plane. She arrived to find Ridge in a hospital bed, thinner, grayer, tired in a way no one had seen before. When she entered the room, he didn't speak. He just looked at her with hollow eyes. "I didn't want you to see me like this." She took his hand, ignoring the tubes, ignoring the machines. "I'd rather have you like this than not at all." Ridge turned his head, eyes glistening. "I didn't want you or Brooke or the kids to suffer." "You made us suffer more by disappearing," Taylor said, voice firm but breaking. "We needed you. You don't get to choose how we love you. You don't get to write your own ending without us." She didn't leave his side for the next week. She bathed him, fed him, argued with doctors, called his children. Brooke came next, then Steffi, then Thomas and RJ. The room filled with family, love, history. Laughter broke through the tears. Brooke sat by his bed one night and whispered, "You're still my destiny, Ridge." He smiled. "You always were." And when Ridge Forrester closed his eyes again, he wasn't alone. He wasn't hiding. He was home. The diagnosis had been swift, brutal, and irreversible. When the doctor in Monte Carlo gently uttered the words, "end-stage liver cancer," Ridge Forrester didn't speak. He didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He simply nodded, his hands resting on his knees, absorbing the verdict like a man already floating outside of time. He had come in expecting fatigue, maybe something treatable. He walked out with a deadline. Back at the harbor, the sea stretched out in quiet defiance. Ridge returned to the villa, stared out across the glimmering Mediterranean, and made a decision. He wouldn't tell anyone. Not Brooke. Not Taylor. Not Steffi, Thomas, or RJ. There would be no vigil, no whispered promises of hope, no hospital beds and pitying eyes. He would disappear with dignity. On his terms. Alone. That night, he wrote two things, a will and a letter. The will was clinical, tucked into an envelope marked with his signature and stored in a locked drawer beneath his travel case. The letter was messy, handwritten in uneven strokes and raw emotion. It was for Taylor. He didn't address her as dear or soften the blow. Ridge never did subtle. The letter was brief, unpolished, but drenched in finality. Asterisk, you were the calm in every storm. You never stopped believing in me, even when I stopped believing in myself. I don't deserve a goodbye, but you deserve the truth. I'm leaving. I don't want you to follow me. Please don't. This isn't cowardice. This is clarity. I need to finish something before the tide takes me. I love you, Ridge. Asterisk beside the note, he left the engagement ring. Not on a velvet box, not carefully arranged. Just placed gently atop the folded page, the stone catching the lamplight like a dying star. Before dawn, Ridge boarded a private sailing vessel under the name Marcello. No entourage. No announcement. No return ticket. Just a sketchbook, a duffel bag, a passport, and a quiet desperation to complete what time hadn't stolen yet. The captain, a weathered Corsican named Salvo, asked no questions. Ridge told him only this: sail south. Stay close to shore. I'll tell you when to stop. What followed was not an escape. It was a pilgrimage. Port after port, Ridge drifted through forgotten Mediterranean towns, places where time had slowed, where walls crumbled under ivy, and old fishermen still mended nets by hand. He found corners untouched by fashion, untouched by noise. In each town, he painted. Not grand oil portraits or digital renderings. Just raw, desperate sketches of color and shape. The beginnings of a final collection. One he called Asterisk the Tides. Asterisk back in Monte Carlo, Taylor woke up to silence. She noticed his absence immediately. Ridge never missed morning coffee, never left his sketchpad behind. Then she found the note. The ring. The truth. She read it once. Twice. Then again. She didn't cry. Not yet. Her hands trembled as she held the ring between her fingers, then pressed it to her lips. She stared out the villa's arched window, watching the dock below empty. He was gone. But Taylor was no stranger to grief. Or to searching. She didn't call Brooke. She didn't alert the children. Not yet. She needed facts. A path. Proof. She turned over everything he left behind, every trace of him in the room. And that's when she found it, the ship's manifest. Folded inside an old guidebook, a single page of nautical coordinates and ports of call. It wasn't complete. The itinerary ended abruptly, hand-scribbled notes marking places like Antibes, Menton, and a town in Sardinia. Taylor saw it not as a map, but a message. She packed a small bag, left a short message for Steffi. Asterisk, I need to find your father. Don't call. I'll explain when I can. Asterisk, and boarded the next train toward the coast. What followed was a chase not of desperation, but devotion. At each port, she found whispers of Ridge. A bartender who remembered him sketching a woman in red. A dock worker who helped him carry painting supplies. An old widow who offered him water and shade while he drew church ruins under a blazing sun. Always a day late. Sometimes two. But never far behind. Each clue revealed more about what Ridge was trying to do, not hide, but create. He was racing death, not running from it. In Polignano a Mare, Taylor found a stack of sketches Ridge had left behind in a cafe, forgotten or maybe abandoned. They were raw and beautiful. Dresses that mimicked seafoam and wind. Patterns echoing ship sails, storm waves, coral reefs. Each piece told a story not of fashion, but of time. How quickly it passed, how fiercely it clung. In Sicily, she found a painting of her. On the back of a wine list in a restaurant near Taormina, pinned to a wall of local art, was a charcoal sketch unmistakably hers. Hair down, eyes lifted toward the sea. The caption scrawled in his handwriting, asterisk, what I never deserved. Asterisk, that's when the tears came. She collapsed on a bench beneath olive trees, clutching the paper to her chest, her sobs racking her breath. Ridge was dying. And every day he lived, he was painting the life he wished he'd been brave enough to live sooner. Taylor pressed on. In Malta, she just missed him again. A harbor vendor said he bought fresh lemons and canvas. Quiet man. Looked tired. But he smiled when he talked about love, the vendor recalled. Said he was in love with 2 women and it broke him. Taylor didn't know whether to laugh or weep. Instead, She followed the clues. Then finally, in a secluded marina near Kalamata, Greece, Taylor saw the boat. Anchored quietly at sunset, the sails furled, the air still. She approached slowly. And there he was. On the deck, shirt half unbuttoned, sketchbook in hand, pencil moving slowly. His face was thinner, paler, but his eyes were still alive, focused. He looked up. They didn't speak. He dropped the pencil. She stepped aboard. And in that quiet moment, words weren't needed. Later, after she helped him down into the cabin, after they sat across from each other in silence, she finally said it. You didn't want to die in front of anyone. Ridge nodded. I didn't want to be watched. Pitted. I just wanted to do something before it ended. Taylor took his hand. You've always done something. You built legacies. You raised children. You were loved, even when you tried not to be. I wanted to finish this, he said, gesturing to the portfolio scattered across the table. One last show. One last story. You still can, she said. But not alone. Ridge looked at her. I never stopped loving you. Taylor smiled through tears. I never stopped chasing you. And so, the tides continued. Together, they returned to Monte Carlo. Ridge weaker, but inspired. Taylor fierce, steady, protective. They unveiled the collection in secret, a private showing inside a converted lighthouse gallery. Just friends. Family. The ocean as backdrop. Each piece of the tides stood not as farewell, but as legacy. A reminder that even as the sun sets, beauty can still rise. Ridge Forrester's final season wasn't tragedy. It was art. And it was love unfinished, but never forgotten.